The land on which we live has always shaped us. From food we eat to clothes we wear, everything is influenced by the geography around us. Our choices are shaped by the rivers, mountains, deserts, lakes, seas, and even the soil of our country. And believe me, I am not exaggerating at all. Throughout our history, powerful empires have fought bloody battles to conquer more and more land so that they can exploit the natural richness of new lands or use those lands for strategic military planning. However, in the 21st century, going to war for conquering more land is no longer an option. The only way for countries to increase their influence is by being part of the world trade. It all comes down to how a country can position itself into the world trade. I mean, look at the most powerful and successful countries of the world. They are all like shopping malls. Everything is for sale. Technology, arms, natural resources, you name it, they sell it. In 21st century, to become successful, countries have to think like business persons. And for a businessman, location of his business always matters. The borders are set, the trade rules are well defined, and now it all comes down to successful use of geography, diplomacy, and trade. And for that same reason, today you and I are going to explore 5 reasons why the location of your country matters more than you think. Hi guys, welcome to Eclectic. Here we talk about history, philosophy, politics, and future tech. So if you are interested in any of that, consider subscribing. The climate and soil. Oh yeah, that is so obvious and easy, you would say. But anyway, it has its importance. Soil and climate of your country define what you can grow in your country. There are countries which are mostly dependent on other countries to have food, and too much dependence is never good for any country. Most countries which are located in the tropical region are underdeveloped because these countries suffer from temperature, tropical diseases, and bad soil quality. We humans became civilized because we started doing agriculture. Trade and commerce became possible because of the agriculture products we produced. The most developed countries in the world typically have a temperate climate without extremes of temperature and with fairly consistent weather patterns. This makes for reliable and sustainable agriculture so the country can provide for itself and have some more to trade. Successful trade equals power and political influence. Okay, now let's assume you have a good amount of agricultural products ready to sell. But hey, wait, not everyone wants to be a farmer and do agriculture. Some people want to exploit the natural resources and manufacture things. Natural resources seems a very obvious factor, but this factor gives countries like China a power to disrupt the world trade. To countries like Russia, it can give power over other countries. You don't believe me? Let me tell you how. Rare earth elements are very crucial for manufacturing electronics, but they are mostly found in China. Rare earth elements are located everywhere in small quantities, but the Chinese rare earth industry makes up 97% of the world trade. China alone has roughly 30% of the world's rare earth elements reserves. A few years ago, an international trade war almost erupted when Chinese suppliers abruptly raised prices on these key elements and the world suddenly realized that China has a monopoly over the rare earth elements.
The trade war is ramping up with China over something called rare earth minerals.
Rare earths, 17 minerals you may barely remember from high school chemistry or geology. They've got funny sounding names like praseodymium, dysprosium, neodymium, and europium. They look like little more than sand, but they are perhaps the most strategically important minerals in the world right now. If you want a cell phone, computer screen, electric car, or a rechargeable battery, you need these minerals. They're also critical in the production of magnets, necessary for building renewable energy projects. Now, the United States used to be a world leader, but 20 years ago, China figured out how important rare earths would be and boosted supply. Prices crashed. Soon, it was no longer profitable to operate mines in the United States. The last major rare earth company in North America, Molycorp, filed for bankruptcy 4 years ago. We now rely on China for more than 90% of rare earth production or processing, creating a big problem. And not just a problem for consumer technology, but for national security. Many of these elements are critical components in defense systems. The long-term concern is that China will end up controlling so much rare earth mining and refining that it will be able to dictate price and availability around the world.
In Russia's case, Russia supplies most of Europe with gas and oil. It has a lot of influence over some European countries, as they are very dependent on Russia for these energy resources. In the Middle East, Arab countries have become so rich by exploiting oil reserves. They even use oil as a political weapon. Do you ever get this question that why Saudi Arabia has so many American weapons? The answer is oil. US is the biggest arms dealer in the world and Saudi Arabia is its number one customer. If the United States somehow decides not to sell weapons to Saudi Arabia, then Saudi Arabia threatens to cut off oil supplies. Anyway, let us not go deeper into the world of politics. The point here is that natural resources have the power to make any country wealthy and powerful. Okay, now we can assume that farmers, manufacturers, mining corporations have done their part. And now they all want to make some money and are ready to sell and just sell. But hey, wait for a second. You cannot sell all of your products at one place. You got to move them from one place to another. You have to explore new markets for making more profits. Countries need to be internally connected for having profitable trade and commerce. No problem. Here comes the next factor, the navigable rivers. For transporting and moving your product from one place to another, you need a good infrastructure and good transportation facilities. While we can always blame our governments for bad transportation routes, but apart from that, natural infrastructure also plays an important role here. Water transportation is the cheapest mode of transportation, and to get benefit from that, you need navigable rivers in your country. What is navigability? A body of water such as river, canal or a lake is navigable if it is deep, wide and slow enough for a ship to pass or walk. If a country has good navigable rivers that connect small villages and towns to urban areas and coastal cities, then it becomes much easier to move and transport your product throughout your country. Africa has a wide variety of natural resources, but the African region is still very poor because of the lack of navigable rivers. Rivers in Africa are full of obstructions such as rocks and other things, and that's why these rivers cannot be used for transportation. Brazil is another example. Brazil is the fifth most populous country in the world. 90% of Brazil's land comes under tropical region, and as I already said, tropical region means bad climate and bad soil quality for agriculture. However, Brazil did not give up. They started using scientific methods for increasing soil fertility and fight the bad climate. But still, when it comes to transportation, they are suffering from lack of navigable rivers in the country. Government is doing all it can to build roads to connect inland to coastal areas. But hey, it would have been much better if Brazil could have got some help from the geography and nature. Now let us assume you have successfully transported your product to urban areas and coastal cities. Now why should you sell your product only to people of your country? Why not selling your product to countries around the world to make more profit, And here comes the international trade routes. And they all start from having coastal cities and ports. Trade connecting routes have always been important since the very beginning of the world trade and commerce. This is the list of the top 10 richest cities in the world, and believe me, all of them are coastal cities. They have a perfect geographical positioning. All these cities have access to the ocean and hence they are able to move products in and out of the country frequently. Now because coastal cities can easily move products in and out of the country, most of the industrial development occurs in these cities and industrialization generates employment and job opportunities. And hence people migrate from inland, from villages, from towns to these big coastal cities for employment and other business opportunities. This is the reason why most of the coastal cities of the world are densely populated. Now after all this manufacturing, selling and generating a huge amount of profits, what would a country do? How would they spend that money? Got it. They spend on weapons and arms. After all, everyone has to protect their own territory. United States, China and Saudi Arabia are among top countries who spend loads of money on their military. But nature also has its own way of protecting countries. That brings us to our last factor, the geographical protection. There is a reason why Alexander the Great could not invade India. He could not do it because of the Hindu Kush mountains and the fact that the soldiers could not adapt to the native atmosphere. If you feel that this is too old example and does not apply to the new technological world, take for example China and India. Two massive countries with a huge population that share a very long border but are not politically or culturally aligned. It would not be surprising if these two giants had fought each other in several wars, but in fact, in reality, apart from one month-long battle in 1962, they never have fought each other. Want to know why? Because between them is the highest mountain range in the world, and it is practically impossible to advance large military columns through or over the Himalayas. As technology becomes more sophisticated, of course countries will try to overcome these natural physical obstacles, but as of now, the physical barrier remains deterrent. And so both countries focus their foreign policy on other regions and keep a sharp eye on each other. The geographical position of a country can influence the security of its borders. For example, the UK is an island. This means it does not share borders with other countries. Apart from Ireland, this means that historically the UK's borders have been much easier to defend, and it has not experienced the same level of invasion or conflict with neighboring armies compared to a mainland country such as China, Poland or Slovakia. Having friendly neighbors also helps many countries. Many European countries belong to the European Union. The EU was formed shortly after World War II to form alliances between European countries to promote peace, interdependence, trade, tourism, etc. Leaders, ideas, technology and other factors all play a role in shaping events, but they are temporary. Each new generation will still face the physical obstruction created by the Hindu Kush and the Himalayas, the challenges created by atmosphere and the disadvantages of limited access to natural minerals or food resources. Nonetheless, rich countries like the United States are trying to break the geographical prison with money and by forging strategic alliances. And that topic deserves a new video. So is your country perfectly positioned? Think about it. Writing and researching on a topic like this takes me weeks and sometimes a whole month. That is why your encouragement matters. So consider subscribing, sharing and commenting. Check my Patreon page and consider donating if you are economically well off.